Hello, everyone. This is Miguelina Betty, aka Catwoman from Tech Valor, and I'm live, woo, with my twin sister Mia. Hey,
Hi, everyone.
and this is a new series that I'm starting. It's called Difficult Conversations, and today's conversation is going to be about conspiracy theories. I did want to give a disclaimer. We're not historians or psychologists. We are discussing the topic for entertainment purposes only. All the information we're talking about is public information unless otherwise stated. We're not responsible for the actions of others after this stream, and the statements we make are from our own personal experiences, and viewer discretion is advised.
Wonderful. I like that disclaimer so
Yes.
much. So I figured the next thing we can talk about is what is a conspiracy theory, since we're going to be
Actually,
talking about
before
them. Okay.
can I say hi to our thirst buckets that were in the chat?
Yes, you may.
Okay, great. So first person that stepped in was Barry with his eyes. Hey, what's up, Barry? Um, Bob and Bordino. He said that me and Gigi always go live when he is eating dinner, and he wants to know how everybody's doing. Having a wonderful Memorial Day. Hey, Savage Scientist. My husband MC Locks and Life is in the chat. Holla at your boy is in the chat. Hey. And yeah, that's all that we have so far. Thank you guys for coming in. All right, so yes, take it away, Mia.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you all for joining. So we'll start off by talking about what is a conspiracy theory. We went through many definitions, and we feel like this is the best one. A conspiracy theory is an explanation for an event or situation that invokes a conspiracy by sinister and powerful groups, often political in motivation, when other explanations are more probable. The term has a negative connotation, implying that the appeal to a conspiracy is based on prejudice or insufficient evidence. A conspiracy is not simply a conspiracy, instead, it refers to a hypothesized conspiracy with specific characteristics, which as in opposition to the mainstream consensus among those people, such as scientists or historians who are qualified to evaluate its accuracy.
Yes, that definition is from Wikipedia. Thank you, Wikipedia. I also put in the description and I put the link to it as well. So it's basically like an extreme form of skepticism, but it also like is telling you like I know the actual truth type of deal. So
Mhm.
I'm glad that Wikipedia took the time to actually get that information out there and put it as into like a little concise paragraph. Thank you for reading that, Mia. So I know that I originally wanted to talk about one thing, but then my sister Mia, she was telling me a story about what happened with our other sister. So yeah, go ahead and tell us the inspiration for this topic.
Awesome. Yeah, so I was talking to my little sister, and she's um, well versed in the TikTok universe. So she came up to me talking to me about a new conspiracy about the death of Selena Quintanilla. And Selena was murdered by the president of her fan club, Yolanda Saltiva, in 1995. And now there's videos circulating on TikTok saying that it was actually her father who conspired with Yolanda to have his daughter murdered. And I mean, those are serious accusations. And I mean, when she brought up the theory to me, like that definitely rubbed me the wrong way for so many different reasons. And so this is what I told my sister when she came up to me about the theory. Like I told her, I'm like, first of all, like we definitely need to let Selena rest in peace, and rewriting the history of her death um, would not be what Selena would want in her legacy. You know, like we definitely want to remember her when she was alive and all the positive that she brought into this world. And, you know, people need to accept the fact that someone was obsessed with someone that was famous, and they were so obsessed that they were capable of killing her. And then I told her, I'm like, I'm not saying that her father was a saint. Like, I'm sure he's like any other parent that uses their child's talent to exploit them for money. But he did not kill his daughter. And so let me explain to you why. When she was alive, she made so much money for him. Why why would he have her killed? That just doesn't make any sense if it's about, all these things about like he's money hungry and all this stuff. It just doesn't add up. And so when I brought that to her, uh, my skepticism of her skepticism, like, it was like a moment of clarity for her, like, oh, okay, like, I didn't think about it that way. And I told him, like, I know that right now Selena's in the mainstream again
Yeah.
because of the Netflix, series. And I know when she was first murdered, there was all these like different rumors and conspiracies that came out before, and then now it's like it's happening again. And I told him, like, you're gonna uncover more things that people are gonna say, but don't dive in too deep into these things, because at the end of the day, like, it's not going to change your life, and that's what I told him, like, you need to remember these things about if you're going to go into like these conspiracy theories type of world.
Yeah.
And so that's why I figured, that would be a good conversation to talk about
Yeah.
in terms of
And
conspiracies.
yeah, and to me, it sounds like what you're talking about is like a spectrum of conspiracy from least harmful to harmful. And that Selena one is least harmful. Obviously, it's not good for her family because, these things that didn't happen, now they're starting to relive it, and it's like 1995 all over again. But as far as our sister, it doesn't affect her. It's just kind of like, oh, this is kind of like a story, right? But I want to know for people in the chat, what is a least harmful conspiracy theory that you guys know about? And just like, share that title in the chat.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting about being able to rank conspiracy theories as like least harmful to harmful, right? Because I feel like they do start off that way, like just like, oh, you can like easily dismiss them. Like, I remember the first one that like was really big was like the Illuminati, and I didn't really like see how it really affected my life, but it was just like you know big back in the day.
Hmm.
And then like to more recently, like the flat earthers, like that conspiracy is not really all that harmful.
Yeah.
um and then talking about fluoride in the water, how that can make your mind more docile. Okay, I see someone brought up about the moon landing.
Yeah. That's
that's
very
that's a
believable.
pretty interesting one too, that is not really harmful.
Hmm. Tech King Mike said it, he feels like the way they're treating the Selena conspiracy is like John Bonet's conspiracy theory, which is a pretty popular one, like celebrities not really dying. That's usually
Hmm.
like a really popular one. Jay Williams wanted to know if you're my sister. She's my twin sister, actually. Yeah, yeah, that's
Sister,
my twin sister.
sister.
Oh,
Yeah.
hey, Regina. Yeah,
And so
Selena
I feel like,
believed in
yeah,
the flat Earth. Yep.
yeah.
Chemtrails. Yep. I
Hmm.
remember chemtrails.
Yeah, because it's like, what are you really gonna do about it, right? Yeah, Tupac still being alive, like all these celebrities
The Mandela effect.
falsifying their death.
Hmm.
I haven't heard of that one. What's that? What's that one about?
The Mandela effect is basically if people thought that Nelson Mandela died, but then when he really died, people were like, "Oh, I thought he already died," so they call it the Mandela
Oh,
effect, right? Or, for example, Bearston Bears. Everybody remembered it being spelled one way, but it was actually spelled another way. Same
okay,
thing
yeah.
with Looney Tunes. Everybody thought Looney Tunes was LUNETOONS, but it's TUNES because it's cartoons and they have music in the background. So that's part of like the Mandela effect, that you remember things wrong.
Yeah.
Well, you think you remember
You
things
think you
wrong, or you
remember
feel
things
like,
wrong.
oh, I'm probably in a parallel universe. Like that's
Yeah,
like the next stuff. Like I just came from a parallel universe where
this,
everything was spelled a different way.
that makes sense. Yeah. And then um, someone was talking about I think so. Tech King Mikey says to me, I think the most damaging is the one surrounding 9/11. Yeah,
Yep.
so that's definitely an example of harmful conspiracy theories.
Yep.
And if you want to put, if, we can transition now to talking about harmful conspiracy theories.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel like the recent ones that I've noticed is the QAnon theories,
Yep.
um, the Holocaust deniers, and
Yes.
then the Stop the Steal is also like pretty recent that have been more harmful to society.
Yeah. Here's a one that's not harmful. Big Brother Black said conspiracy. Nightbot shouted out everyone but me. Well, the Nightbot is there's a 5 second if you say hi that there's a I did a video about what that. So Sharkfin said Catwoman, I have a great one and too harmful nowadays. Amelia Earhart, I've been investigating it for 3 years and I'm convinced she didn't just disappear,
Mm,
run out of fuel, crash in the Pacific. Yep. Yep, that's one too.
yeah, absolutely. And I also think the reason why we want to bring this up is because it's okay to have skepticism.
Yes.
Like, um, like I don't take everything at face value. I have my own biases, so I will take something that face values than others, right? Um, but I think where that degree of least harmful to harmful in terms of conspiracy theories come about is the form of activism to enforce
Yes.
that skepticism, to
Hmm.
say that it's real.
Yeah. It's one thing to share videos and
Hmm.
but it's another thing to actually take action. For example, Pizzagate. There was a conspiracy that Democrats were violating children and doing like a pedo ring, right? And a person came in with a shotgun into a pizza place, Comet Pizza, thinking it was one of the pizza places that the children were in and was holding people hostage. So I thought that he actually killed someone, but he didn't. He did shoot, but he didn't actually kill someone. But that could have gone really, really wrong. So that's
Yeah,
a form of conspiracy theory moving into dangerous
hmm,
territory.
yeah, absolutely. Like, especially when COVID was being more and more talked about in the mainstream, and then with the internet, people started saying like, "Hey, it's actually you know 5G towers are actually giving out COVID." That's like such a silly thing to think about. Like, how can you relate those two? But people took it seriously, and then they started uh, burning down 5G towers. So that's where it became like okay, that's a you know you know we can dismiss this conspiracy theory, and then we're like, oh no, we like
Hmm.
things are actually getting like people are being endangered, things are actually being set on fire. We need to actually calm the public and give out information and,
Yeah.
about how the technology works,
Hmm.
enforcing about what we know so far about COVID-19. And actually, the whole link with between 5G and COVID-19, I didn't even heard about it until Miji one day sent me
Yeah.
a video, and I was just I was just like, okay, she just sent me a video and I'm listening to it. And it's this guy and he's saying that he works for a company and he's saying that there's a link. And I was just like, oh man, Miji's at it again with her conspiracy theories. Like, what am I gonna do? Like,
Yep.
and so I just immediately called her and I'm like, hey, thanks for sending me the video. Do you believe this? And then she told me like, oh no, I don't believe it at all. I just wanted to send it to you because I thought it was ridiculous. And I was like, oh thank goodness,
Yeah.
because I've been down this road with Miji before. But this is also why we can't allow the skepticisms to go unchallenged,
Yep.
because if we just easily dismiss them and ignore them, they can actually, people will want to get the attention and they'll do anything possible to be heard.
Yeah,
and
because
the
they legit,
avenue that they do. Yeah.
people legit feel like they're trying to help others.
Mm-hmm.
And the internet is becoming like just really powerful. It's like a grassroots movement, right? But it's a
Mm-hmm.
mobilization that's happening on the web. And I know that for me, when I first went down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories was when I was 19 years old. Um, I was watching, I was on YouTube and somebody posted a clip of Rosie O'Donnell on The View talking about World Trade Center 7. They're like, she was like, look into World Trade Center 7. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I went in and I just searched it up on YouTube and just bam, Illuminati,
Mm-hmm.
aliens, like all that stuff. And I believed it. And this comes into like, how could somebody believe this stuff? Well, I know that
Mm-hmm.
for me, I've been marginalized my whole life, but I've also been bamboozled by the education system, um, the media, various forms of authority where I trusted what they said at face value, and it turned out to be not true. Right. And so it was easy for me to equate that it can go from, oh, it's all about the money to it's a secret cabal. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have any power. Like there was nothing I could really do with the information, but it did cause an extreme form of paranoia inside of myself. And I would share the videos with my family, my friends, anyone that would listen. And it really like I was a functioning person. But then, I'd be like, oh, did you know this? Oh, did you know that? And I noticed that like it would start off with first, like actually something true, right? Like actually something true. And then they would move on to something else, like false flag attacks, right? The US doing false flag attacks on other countries. And then from that, let's leapfrog into aliens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And um I lived with that being the truth for a very long time. And I don't even think, like when I first realized that okay, this isn't true, I don't even think I told anyone. And that's why when I sent Mia the 5G video, she was like, "Oh, BG's at it again." I was like, "Oh no, I was just talking about how this is ridiculous." And it was like, "Oh, that's weird that's coming from her."
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's isn't you bring up an interesting point too, right? Because it's like what leads people into these conspiracy theories, right? Like I feel like it's definitely just the compelling forms of medias
Yeah.
that we have right now. Like
Mhm.
just the way you're able to like anybody can just really make a video. They could do like transitions, right? They can make a website. It doesn't have to be credible. It just has, you just need like a couple $100, right? And then so you can create this compelling media and then link it to this uncredible source,
Yep.
add videos, message boards, turn it into a documentary of the sorts, and you have a compelling argument.
Mhm. Yeah.
And the thing about, you know, we want to make sense of the world, right? Like that's something that we really want to do. And the problem is like when we watch the news, is very sensationalized,
Yes.
right? So they'll tell you a story, it'll take maybe at most 2 minutes, and they don't really follow up with it, right? So us as humans, we're trying to fill in the gaps. We're trying to fill in the gaps of the stories, right?
Yep.
And then these rumors, speculation happens, right? And we are going to naturally create a good versus evil narrative
Yep.
because that's what comes like easy to us.
Yep. So when I snapped out of it, like I know I said I didn't really tell anyone, but I remember I was joining different types of message boards, right? Because a lot of them they would only last probably like a year or two, and then there would be infighting, and then like the message board would be gone. So I would go to another one, and they were easy to find because you know I hang out on YouTube a lot, and YouTube would recommend those types of videos to me, and then I would just follow the trail. Then I would find the message board and just go from there, right?
Mhm.
And I remember I was going in between one message board to another, and I was like, "Oh, did you know this and this and that?" And they were like, "Oh, snap! I did it. Can you send me the information?" I was like, "All right, cool." So I went back to the site, grabbed the information, which was a video, and then put it in the other one. They were like, "No, can you send me something credible?" And I was like, "Yes, I'll be right back." And I never came back because I couldn't find a legit source. Like I couldn't.
Yeah.
So in like I don't know if maybe I don't think that person was actually like I think that they were just like a quote unquote truth seeker like I was. And then I was like, huh, let me start applying it to other things, like the world is gonna end in 2012, like, oh, why didn't it?
Oh my goodness.
But right, yeah, like stuff like that. So um when I started applying that type of method, I was like, oh snap, this is kind of like destroyed, you know. And then even when the conspiracy theories started to come about with COVID, I felt like I was going through deja vu because it was the same things that they said about the H1N1 virus was being applied to the conspiracy theories about COVID. And I just remember sitting there in Facebook and watching it because I felt like it was kind of like just being mainstream now. It was mainstream on Facebook, and I'm like, these look like the message boards that I was in, but it's now on
Mhm.
Facebook, and then it's now on Twitter. It's just like
Mm.
it was spreading, right? And all I could sit back and go, that could have been me right there sitting with them,
Mhm.
like just very easily.
Yep.
So it
Absolutely.
doesn't, and so I think that's where people are like, oh, well, this doctor said this, right? Or this, scientist said this. And so you're like, oh, well, that's a credible source. But it's like, okay, now is that the only one? Where they like, what are they actually a scientist of? What do they have their PhD in? It's regular people like you and me. They don't have to be quote unquote
Mhm.
crazy in order for it to be for somebody to believe in conspiracy theories. It's just regular people can believe in it.
Yeah. Absolutely. I know. I know. I've believed a few of them on my own account. I haven't done any activism towards them, but I do wanted to highlight something here that Big Bro Black wrote in. He says, but I'm not sure what means. I think he
Like,
means read the internet roles in
or
this.
regarding.
Oh, regarding, okay, the internet roles in this. Everybody now wants a voice, respecting uh, or opening, or maybe opinion on these theories. Give one easy access to that voice projected to everyone who you are linked to on social media, which
Mhm.
is absolutely true. Like, um, the conversations don't happen unless the conversations actually happen.
Yep.
And with everyone just having a device that's linked to the internet all the time that has social media and everyone is connected, it's so easy to just share the same mentality. And without you even knowing, you just start repeating what other people are saying.
Mhm. Yeah. Yep. And I forgot what I was gonna say. Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah.
You want me to take it away?
Yes. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So, um, has anyone ever actually like brought people out of a conspiracy theory? Because
Me
I feel like
myself.
in Oh yeah, well, or anyone in the chat. Like,
Yeah.
I'd be interesting to know if anybody has brought anyone out of a conspiracy theory, because I think it's interesting. Like, why is it that conspiracy theories, like theorists, rub people the wrong way if
Yeah.
they feel like they're just trying to help out? Do you have any like insight, Miji?
Oh, I know I was annoying. Because I meant well. Like I honestly
Yeah.
meant well. Like I was just wanted to give the information to the people so that they can do something about it. Like I remember one time I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna set something up. I'm gonna get all these videos ready. I'm gonna bring people over. We're gonna talk about it." And me, I was like, "Sure, okay, cool." I won't be there. Um, so, but I think it's also I know that for me it wasn't a theory, right? Everything was a hoax. Like I lived in this absolutism of skepticism where it was just
Mm,
like, okay, I know the real truth because I'm a truth seeker and I'm gonna
mm,
share and that rubs people the wrong way because it's like you said it's a theory, right? And you're like,
yep.
but it's the truth theory. It- like I think
Yeah.
that is one of the ways that like can rub people the wrong way.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you're just giving out this like unsolicited advice that no one asked for, right? And then you're like calling people names like, you're a sheep, you're not woke, you need to wake up,
I
you need
didn't
to
do the
take,
name calling though. I remember
yeah,
I didn't do name calling.
yeah. But like, people are saying like, take the red pill, like all these different references to
Yeah.
like, you think you're helping other people, but what you're doing is just, you're like, you're pushing them away. Like they're not even there anymore. Like they've already shut down.
Mm-hmm.
Like especially like the approach that
Yes.
that is coming off.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, even though people are saying it's a theory, they're
Yep.
living in the absolute. That is not just a theory.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So far nobody in the chat has said anything about being able to
Get
get
someone.
someone out of a conspiracy theory because that's kind of hard, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
That's kind of hard. So, I know you, Mia, you have experience a little bit with it because you helped our little sister.
Hmm.
But there is, and I posted it in the description, links, articles to how to help talk to someone that is talking about a conspiracy theory, that's like completely false or incorrect.
Hmm.
And Mia actually did one of those things. Well,
Yeah.
did parts of those things.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I see it happening all the time on my Facebook. And so when I feel compelled to like reply to someone, I like to first acknowledge the time and effort that they put into coming to their conclusion, right? And then in the article it says like, asking them like step by step, how did they come to that conclusion? And I think it's like you hit it right on the nail when you said like ask for the source, right? Like asking
Yeah.
them like, oh, so so how did you get to this conclusion? Oh, like like being a truth seeker just like them,
Mhm.
right? um and it's okay that if along the way you start to actually see that there is some truth to what they are actually saying,
Yep.
because there is truth to some of these conspiracy theories that come about, right? it's
Yes.
just it's just getting lost in the hyper fantasy of it,
Yep.
if you will, right? um so asking for those sources will be really helpful, and then
Like
I
how did
think
you come
from
to the conclusion?
there, say it again.
Like how did you come to that conclusion?
Yeah, how did
I
you
want
come
to
to that
understand.
conclusion? Hmm. Right. And then, you shared your experience. Did you want to share a little bit more about your experience, or you feel like you've already said what you needed to say?
Try to think. I did do something incorrect. So I was believing in the whole all vaccines are bad thing. And so
Mm,
I postponed my daughter's vaccination for a year. But then I was like, okay, I have to vaccinate them in order for them to go to school. And so I talked to their doctor, and their doctor was like, oh, okay, you postponed their vaccines. That's okay. Well, we could get them back on a regimen. It'll just take a little bit longer for them to be back on track. And so my doctor worked with me on that. Then, um, what else? Also, I wasn't gonna get the H1N1 vaccine, but I had to get it in order to stay in the United States. and luckily I didn't have any side effects.
That's that's really brave of you to share, because like talking about vaccinations nowadays is a very hot topic too.
Yeah. I'm not always correct. I don't think I know everything. I try to share what I know. Um, but I know that I don't know everything. I know that I'm incorrect at times, and it I have to be vulnerable because there might be someone out there that is like me that's going through that pace and they feel like they can't come back because their loved ones have shunned them and kind of like put them in an island where they can't come back from.
Yeah,
And and someone like me, like you didn't even know. I don't have a digital footprints of me doing these types of things. But probably there's someone out there that has and wants to probably challenge their own thoughts so it can happen to anyone. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I absolutely like what you just said there, and I think the reason why I talked to our sister when I did was because I didn't when you were telling me all of these conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
Again, there were some truths to some of the things you were saying, right? Like, nah, not everything is black and white, right?
Mhm.
But I saw her slipping and I was like, oh no, let me pull her out of there. And so I feel like I was able to talk to her and talk to her about her skepticism because I had that kind of rapport with her. And with other people, you're going to want to approach it differently. But there's going to be times where you can't. People are just going to believe what they want, and
Yep.
that's okay. And then at that point, that's I feel like that's where you need to like just set the boundary,
Yeah.
right? And say like, hey, you know what? I really enjoy your company and I enjoy your time, but every time you bring up this topic, I can see you're very passionate about it. You know what? Let's just save that for another time. Or you know what? This topic actually doesn't make me feel comfortable because I don't know enough about it. So we can talk about that another time, and setting that boundary with that person, but still keeping them in your life, right? Because where people become extreme is because of the isolation that happens,
Mhm.
right? And and it's good to know too, because people will say, like, they will out themselves out and say like, hey, like, they'll keep talking about the topic because they are so passionate about it. And if you do hear that there is going to be some sort of um, backlash or activism that could potentially be harmful, you could be that person in line to be the whistleblower
Yep.
for it to not happen, right? And with social media, right, it's good to like just mute them for a little bit, unfollow them, don't unfriend them, but
Yeah.
just if you feel like it's getting to be like too much, just dial it back a little bit.
If it's someone that you really care about, like don't ban them, you know. Just turn it off to where you can't see their stuff regularly.
Hmm.
Basically, would be that's what one of the resources say on here. And so I just think it's good to share types of solutions because we could talk about how we get here all day or
Hmm.
how it has affected us all day. But I think also talking about the solutions is really important because someone might have not tried these types of approaches. So it's good to educate yourself so that you can try it out and see if it does work. If not, that you could pivot. And it's not going to work for everyone. It's not going to work all the time, but it's always good to try. Yep.
Yeah. And if you feel like this conversation is hitting you too much at home because you're actually the person that's trying to give off this information,
Yeah.
you're the actual conspiracy theorist, right? It would be a good time to just like take a break from social media. Just
Yep.
dial it down like a little bit, right?
Yep. So I'm just going back into the chat because I know I missed some conversations because I was trying to stay on topic. So now I'm just
Sure.
gonna go back and find some
people are having good conversations in here.
Yes, I
I
know.
absolutely
Yeah,
love
everybody's so
it.
buddy buddy. I love it. Yeah. So now
Yeah.
I'm just going back. Yeah. So savage scientists said that sometimes conspiracy theories are confused with ignorance. Yeah. Like
Mhm.
it's like we don't know enough, and so we trust an outside source to give us the information, but unfortunately we just don't have that privilege. We have to try to stay knowledgeable about a lot of certain things. If not, then we're going to get bamboozled.
And nobody likes to be bamboozled. And
Yes.
but it's also right, nobody likes to be bamboozled, but it's also good to say like, hey, you know what? I was in the wrong. I didn't know enough information and I thought I was being helpful.
Hmm. Yeah. Emily Wilson said that we are her favorite twins. Thanks.
Aw. Hey.
Sharkfin Tech said Pizzagate is absolutely awful and insane. Not a shred of truth to any of it, but it's another one of the QAnon nuts that keep
Mhm.
repeating it despite it being 100% disproven. Yeah, and shows are actually using that Pizzagate situation into their shows as a storyline of it going too far, where
Mm.
someone actually does kill people. And I think that's where I kind of was like, oh wait, did somebody did that person actually kill? No, they just came in with the shotgun
Yeah.
and basically held people hostage. It's like, where are the kids?
Yeah. And then I think things like that, right, too, when we see it in the media, when we see it over and over again, we'll eventually start to get desensitized
Yeah. Yeah.
to it.
But the reason why we get desensitized is also because the media is looking for our attention,
Mm.
because that's where the currency is, right? And so we need to rationalize the fact that sometimes it's not just a conspiracy theory, right? These institutions are, like for example the media, need a storyline and need to sensationalize things so that they can have advertising dollars. Big Brother Black said 5G towers work with the magnets that are implanted with the COVID vaccines to control your mind. So I've heard. Yep, that's
Oh,
one of the theories.
wow.
I know he's joking. He's being
Of
sarcastic.
course, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the type of things where you're like, that's such a reach. Like they really reached for that conclusion.
Yes. Yes. Savage Scientist said that he was trying to find them spaceships in the bankhead. Yep. Or might just be jokesters.
Yeah.
Raymond Williams, oh, was answering Jay Will's question. Trying to go back.
Oh, I think it was like, do you really know when, do you feel like you know when you're going to die? I think that was his question.
Oh, okay. I scrolled all the way up and I don't find the question. Sorry, Jay Will. Jay. Okay, so Jay Will, to answer your question, yes, I think at the moment before death, a person can feel when their life is about to end. Mhm. Yeah.
I believe that. I also believe that I've had a few panic attacks and that was not it. That was not the end. So thank goodness that that was a false alarm.
Yeah. We read this one already. Tech Mike said it. I think it's ironic when people think things are conspiracies and it turns out to
Mhm.
be truthful events like the Tulsa massacre, Alabama syphilis trials, and
Mhm.
so much of our history. Exactly, and that is one of the things that we need to be honest about, is that these we can't trust these institutions all the way because they do shady things in order to maintain their power or the illusion of power, that it does hurt real life people, so it's easier to believe these types of conspiracy theories. Not only that people are conspiring, but that it can be so sinister,
Mhm.
so sinister that it's almost inhuman. So that's why it's easy to believe that only an alien
Yeah.
can do these types of things, not a
Or
human,
a lizard person. Yeah.
right? Or a person who is like a Satan worshiper, stuff like that. Emily Wilson said people cherry pick truths All of the education in the US history is basically an inaccurate depiction of history since its defense of white patriarchal capitalism and colonialism. Exactly. You're absolutely right. It's that self preservation of these institutes that they're willing to paint an inaccurate story of history to children so that when they get older, they're less likely to contest what has happened, and just it'll just be like an everyday thing, just
Hmm.
like just feeding the machine, feeding the machine.
And then the accountability is on the actual victim,
Yes.
and that's absolutely not fair.
Yeah, it's not fair whatsoever. Savage Scientist said the whole movie Birth of a Nation brainwashed a lot of people that is kind of like a conspiracy that they did it on purpose to hold black backs more. That's absolutely true. So there are instances, a lot of instances throughout history where
Mhm.
governments and institutions, for example, um, the code of conducts in comic books, right? They were like, well, you can't talk about this in comic books, and you can't talk about that in comic books, which was appeasing to another institution that was giving them money, which is the religious institution. So it's easy again to believe in a more sensationalized, almost diabolical conspiracy,
Mhm.
like microchips in the vaccines, right?
Yeah,
Because that's what they'll do. They'll do videos where they'll talk about something true, like Birth of a Nation, and then leapfrog it into the mark of the beast. And the mark of the beast is here. The mark of the beast is the COVID vaccine, you
yeah.
know?
And also to just point out about more talks about the movie about the birth of the nation. If you're interested in learning more about how that actually did persuade, um, this crime against Black people, the documentary 13th on Netflix is really, really good.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Big Brother Back said, Techie Mike, I don't recall those ever really being conspiracies as opposed to just straight up denials by the government. That is kind of like borderline, though, kind of like denying it, right? Is
Mhm.
almost kind of like a conspiracy because part of the umbrella of a conspiracy is calling everything a hoax, right? Yeah, so yeah,
Yeah,
I can see it.
because all you have to do is just implant a seed of doubt, and you got someone.
Yep. Sharkfin Tech said, I do believe that 9/11 was an inside job. There are mountains of evidence, but it's a question of degree, and it's impossible to answer where the World Trade Center passengers are now without more information. Yes, I do. That was, like I said, that was the first one. Like, look into World Trade Center 7. How was it that they were able to pull it so fast? And then the inaccuracies of 9/11 and how it could have
Mhm.
been an inside job, things like that. Yep.
And also to that notion, the public is only going to know as much as the institutes want to know, because if they tell us the entire truth, who knows what else could be uncovered. But it may not even be that big. But again, we're filling in the gaps
Yep.
because we're trying to know more, and we're only humans, and
Yep.
we're trying to, and this is obviously 9/11 was a huge turn of event in history for the United States. So it's just going to get poked at and poked at and poked at
Yeah.
and poked at as much as possible.
Yeah. And unfortunately, us as the public, we don't have transparency as to what the government completely knows and is willing to give us. And so, because there's so inconsistencies and holes, again, we're filling in the gap, you know? Raymond Williams said, the good old Mayan calendar. Yes. Um, So, Savage Scientist said that he made a video predicting the COVID outbreak, not the date of COVID, just that it will be worse than what people have expected. Um, yeah, that was one of the things, the theories that they talked about with COVID, that it was a biohazard, that it was constructed in a lab, and that was because there was other, like the CDC actually predicting a um a COVID virus like this. But that's also like looking at a video game and saying, well, they said bacteria could be the next thing that could turn people into zombies. The truth is that humans are so good at thinking ahead
Hmm.
that it almost seems like a self-fulfilled prophecy.
Hmm.
But scientifically, we have to make these type of predictions so that we could get ready. Now, could we have foreseen how uncooperative we were going to be?
Would that be? Mm.
Ah, even looking back at, you know, 1918, 1919 Spanish flu, quote unquote, what they call Spanish flu. That's a derogatory name for that flu, unfortunately. Yeah, that could have been foreseen, but it wasn't as well documented as it was this time around. So hopefully we'll learn from our mistake.
Oh, Savage says that it was a joke that he predicted COVID.
Okay. All right. Sorry.
These are supposed to be difficult conversations. You're not supposed to make jokes. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I'm putting exclamation point dad jokes in the comments because I'm trying out a new Nightbot command. Emily Wilson said these systems are built by white men. It's colonialism and has developed into capitalism, but it's all to support those at the top and the creators of the system. Yeah, so the system that we have right now, unfortunately, incentivizes. God, I can't think of the word.
Are you just talking about like incentivizes the white men?
Not just the
No.
white men, but exploitation. That's the word. Yeah,
Ah, okay.
yeah, these systems basically run on a totem pole, which currently right now it's the cis white men at the top, and they're doing everything that they can to preserve it because they know that if they don't, they'll be at the bottom of the totem pole. But that's a whole different conversation about how is it that we can
Yeah.
revoid and revamp these institutions so that it's not incentivized by profiting off of exploitation of people.
Or animals. But that's a whole other topic too. I did want to bring up a point though, is that um so like I remember when you first told me about the Illuminati Meiji, and it was just like a lot. It was just like a lot of information thrown at me. And what I did was I talked to a friend and I tried to explain it the best that I could, right, to to that person. And I was like, hey, have you heard about Illuminati? And they were like, yeah, I heard a few things about it. And I'm like, well, this is what I heard. Well, what do you think about it? And this is what they told me. They said, well, I think what you're saying makes sense because if I'm part of a group of people that have a lot of money, I'm going to do everything in my power to keep that money. And the way that she simplistically laid that out, that vision for me, made me think like, oh, these people are not scary aliens, lizard people. They're just human beings. And humans are just greedy. It's just some people just are.
Yeah,
And it made me less fearful to know that okay, there's a human behind that, so maybe there could be some compassion behind that too.
yeah, yeah. Is that self preservation that kicks in? It's like, yes, it's gonna hurt this many people, but I'm gonna come out all right in the end, and so that's what I'm gonna do.
Hmm.
And then it could just also be an agreement between people because it also happens not only in a macrocosm, right? Like in the government, but it happens in a microcosm as well, right? Like a family.
Yeah.
Who's the people at the top? The guardians, right? The mother, the father, whoever's the eldest, right? And that person might do something wrong. So we're going to shield them, even though we know that what they did could possibly even be a crime, right? But we're going to shield them to maintain the facade that the family is all right.
Yeah.
So it happens in a macrocosm and a microcosm as well. Big Brother Black said, when you make a choice to follow a belief, it's hard to convince you to go against that belief. I think followers have to experience some personal pain caused by that belief to stop believing it.
Yep.
Perfectly said.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And also to know that there is a community outside of that community that
Hmm.
they can run back to and say, hey, I was wrong. Can you help me out? This is actually the situation that's happening.
Yeah. Tech Mike said that his sister is loving this conversation.
Oh,
Oh, thank you for having her in this conversation and listening. Thanks. Uno Nice said, Tech Valor, a friend of mine, he's 100 on the election was stolen. I can't get him to understand. Hey, nothing is perfect, but they recount, investigation, court, etc. There's no evidence.
mhm.
Yeah, some people are just like, this is
Yeah,
this is my version of events, and this
yeah,
is where I'm gonna keep going. And so, essentially, you have a choice to make.
yeah,
Is that person so near and dear to you that you're gonna keep them in your life?
yeah. And then, like we said before, you can set that boundary and say, like, hey, you know what? We're just not going to talk about the election. But if there's ways that you feel like we can work together to benefit from the government that has already been established,
Hmm.
we can talk about that, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then move forward.
But it is unfortunate that the steal rally caused formed into an insurrection. You
Hmm.
know, so that is a harmful conspiracy theory. Two Phone said, "Yo, Facebook and Reddit are horrible right now. I'm cooking these boys though. Forget that they're gonna get it." Okay. Hey, yeah, some people do that. They go in there and then they're
Yeah.
like, "Facts, facts, facts, facts." That is a method. Is it always the most successful one? No, not always. Yeah. The conspiracy still goes on in the chat. Nightbot continues to show everyone else love. I'm sorry, Big Brother Black. I'm sorry. Um,
It's the
the bionic
algorithm.
the bionic suit said vaccination was important for me with my long-standing health issues. Yeah, and there's people that can't get it, and there's people that can get it and have a legitimate reason. But then, unfortunately, right now, there's people who want to walk around without a mask without doing the work, which is the work is getting vaccinated. You know, but we're all doing it by the honor
Yeah.
system right now.
Yeah.
Uno Nice said, I'm just saying he's not trying to hear anything. Yeah, yeah. Just scrolling down. You guys are having awesome conversations. Shark FinTech said, Emily, I have regularly been taking 1 to 2 month breaks from Facebook for at least a couple of years now. A lot of it is repetitive, and too much stuff on there is toxic, not to mention trifling.
Mm.
Yeah, I've noticed myself like I just go on Facebook to promote what's going on with Tech Valor, and then I bounce. My main place is Twitter, and of course, people will argue that Twitter is just as toxic, but I feel like it's a little less. For me, I've noticed, anyways, that the algorithm there doesn't send me BS as much as Facebook does. So, yeah.
And that is a good strategy, taking those breaks from social media. I know that I had to, because I was just hearing too many conflicting information about COVID-19 when stay-at-home orders were being in progress, and I had to, I actually had to delete the app from my phone. Like, that's how bad it got,
Wow.
and it was the best thing that I ever did. I only went to the CDC.gov. I only looked at the news,
Hmm.
like when they actually had the conference, right?
Yeah.
Like when they actually had the press release, not like headline little articles here and there. I never read those. Like, I'm like, if I'm gonna get the information, I'm gonna get the information that I'm gonna be receiving,
Yeah.
and that's how I took it. So yes, that
Yeah.
is the best approach to do.
Yeah. Bionic Scoop said, Emily, mine is more super compromised with any respiratory issues. Yeah. And that's why achieving as much herd immunity with vaccinations is so important so that we can protect people who can't legitimately get a vaccine due to health issues. Yeah. Emily Wilson said, I love that, Mia, knowing when and where to step in and speak into someone's life, that makes all the difference.
Hmm.
That's very, very true.
Your audience is going to be different.
Yeah. Wow. I'm really far up. I'm sorry. Um, we're almost done. 5 minutes left. Teki might say, growing up, we had to vaccinate every time the military moved us somewhere. I blame my own anxieties and social media consumption for my hesitation on the vaccine, but I'm glad I did it. That's good. Sharkfin said, Mia, is conspiracy debunking the focus of your channel, or is it something else?
I
Should
don't
be.
have a channel. I just like to watch channels. I wanted to bring up the conversation because um, we don't have enough conversations about how to have conversations, right? About different topics, because you're
Yeah.
going to approach things differently with different people. And so I just wanted to bring up the conversation about how do we talk about conspiracy theories without like really putting people down, right? Because, we've been caught up in it ourselves. And we need to remember to express compassion for one another, right? Because at the end of the day, people have the best intentions in their own convoluted way, right?
Yep. Yep. Tech Mike said, I got to hug my grandparents after not seeing them for almost a year, and I'm protecting my family. Call me crazy, but I like that feeling. Nah, you don't know. You're not crazy. It's a good feeling. Emily said, I would add that it's fair to give clear boundaries. Like, you'll have to take time off from communicating if they cannot respect a need for limiting topics. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, Tech and Mike said Mia needs a Canon 90D. We need 90D conspiracies. That's the camera that I
Oh, okay.
got. Is it really expensive camera? Okay.
The
Emily
conspiracy theories, I don't make enough. So
um Emily Wilson said, I feel like people create echo chambers for themselves which can exacerbate passion and eventual extremism. I think so too. I think it's good to hear. I go in and I listen to what the conspiracy theories are just so that I can also be informed on it as well as not only just from credible sources, just so that I also don't have an echo chamber. But then also I lived in the conspiracy world for such a long time that it's kind of they all sound the same to me. A lot of the times they do. Like I can tell what they're gonna say and rationalize before they actually complete it. Okay, people are talking about wrenches, and Emily is leaving. Thank you. Thanks for stopping by. Bionic Scoop said he's a bit of a deaf expert. Yes, because he passed away multiple
oh,
times, but he's
welcome
here
back.
with us now.
Glad you are here.
Yeah. Um, dad jokes. Thanks for testing that out for me. Michael Pepper Tech Talk said a lot of conspiracies are excused by religion as well. Christianity was used to murder hundreds and thousands of South Americans and covered up. Yeah, um, that's true. That is true. But also, what I want to say is that it's not just Christianity. You can link just about any institution of power to causing inequities and death. So I also don't want to shun all like blanket people right into it
Yeah.
because there has been times in my life where I've had help from Christian people. So it all really depends on each institution is their own, right? And so just like how right now we're kind of showing compassion for those that believe in conspiracy theories, we also want to don't throw that blanket onto Christianity as well. But you are absolutely correct about that happening.
And also throwing that blanket statement towards like even race, like white people. Like I definitely don't believe that all white people are evil and all that jazz.
Yep. Yep. And Miss Pro Roller Sarah, hey, she said yes. Hierarchy definitely incentivizes exploration starting from birth. Yeah, there is a hierarchy. Yep, and it starts right at home too, and family. And it's not to say that children are they need to rebel against their parents and stuff, but it's that respect factor that we need to have, onto our children, our children onto us. Same thing with um you know in the real world when we're just talking to people and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Yep. So it is 8, and there are still a lot of comments, and I'm sorry that I can't read them all. I do want to stick to 1 hour exactly. Thank you so much for helping me have this difficult conversation, Mia. I do
You're
appreciate
welcome.
you 1,000%. And you're welcome to come back. For those who are curious, I want to have these types of conversations once a month, topics that are near and dear to me, difficult conversations that are not completely gray, sorry, that are not completely black and white, that have tons of gray in it, so that we can all live in humanity and not devolve. So I'm going to say goodbye. Do you have anything else to say before we end it?
It was wonderful chatting with all of you, and thanks for hearing me out.
Yeah. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.